interesting.
Yeah,
Right, so you
maybe
graduated.
you were really important.
Yeah.
I'm just like what about me?
Oh, so yeah, in the same year, so 10 years ago, graduated 10 years ago, and currently working for the NHS, but I won't say anything else. I'll let Nazreen take over.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me? Because I'm not a loud person. Yeah, great, super. So I'm Naz. Thank you for inviting me today, Joanne. It's really nice, quite weird being in this building, and it's, you know, the same. We were saying earlier, the smell's the same. This hall feels smaller. I remember it being really big and cramped and hot, and certainly when you walk down the corridor, I got lost and thought, oh God, it's really hot in here. I remember that. But it's nice to see you've got new computers and a bit of new furniture in the common room downstairs. So they're obviously investing in you, which is good. So yeah, I'm Naz. Hopefully, try not to bore you too much and use too many acronyms. I think when you start in the sort of jobs that I've done, you know, you can't help but pick up the language, and that is a problem. So if I've used anything that you think, Naz, what's that mean? Please stop me, because, you know, I don't want to carry on if it's not relevant. I think listening to the earlier two speakers, there's definitely a theme around giving you some advice and hopefully the lessons that I've learned in my career. And I think the others are obviously sharing is that we can't emphasise how important it is to volunteer, because I think, you know, my nieces and nephews are getting to an age where they've done degrees, but actually they've got no work experience. So for me, the first thing I really want to encourage you to do is to invest in yourselves, get some work experience and things that you enjoy, that you're interested in. Can't emphasise how important that is, but also get a job, you know, help pay the bills, get your student loan down, but I think also getting a job will help you build your confidence and get that experience. I've got a nephew at the moment who's doing a degree in anthropology, and, you know, really he's very shy, never got a job, mum and dad paid for everything, no work experience, and you know, now he's really struggling because when he's going to fill in application forms, he's got nothing to write, but when he does get an interview, he's so nervous that he's stuttering, and that's not where we'd like to see, hopefully, any of you have been getting to once you've qualified or got your degree. So, whilst I was at university, I mean, I sort of did things that, you know, I had jobs. I worked in awful telesales, and I worked in a call centre selling loans, and I hated it, but it paid the bills. But it also really, I think for me, you know, I came from a family where, you know, my mum never worked, so, you know, I was the first sort of girl in my sort of sister. I'm the first one that could drive, that could sort of read English, first one to be getting a degree, but also then got a job. And, you know, I remember my first paycheck, I got £34, and it's £4.60, and I was really proud of that, you know, minimum wage. Still remember it to this day. But I think rather than the job, it was the confidence of, you know, being over the telephone, speaking to people, but making connections at work and using that experience. And I was quite crafty, I think. Looking back at it, I think, how did I do that? But I remember working at Lombard, the call centre. I think they've closed down now. And I remember saying to my manager in my one-to-one, you know, I'm really interested in HR. I'm doing a degree at the moment, but I don't know if that's a career I want to go into. I know that we're a big organisation. We're part of Royal Bank of Scotland. Is there any way you can get some work experience? So she said, oh, I'll look into it. And a few weeks later, she said, oh, we can pay your travel. We've got a centre in Manchester, and you can go there and do some work experience. And I did it, and they paid my travel, and the train was expensive, so I appreciated that. I absolutely hated it. It was an office where they were basically, every time somebody got a job, one team was just doing all the letters, another one was doing all the pensions, and I thought, oh my God, if that's what I'm going to do, that's awful. Might as well stay where I am. So really useful, you know, I learned what I didn't want to do, and that I think that was helpful. But just be creative in the opportunities that you get at work. You know, even if you're doing bar work, you know, is it a national chain? Is there something that you can do? But what I did, I think, was really, in terms of volunteer work, I worked at Citizen Advice Bureau, and see, I've already got an acronym there. Citizen Advice Bureau, I did that every Thursday in my last year at, I think it was my middle year at university, my second year, and I did that every Thursday, somewhere close to where I lived. I found it a really beneficial experience, which after university helped me get my first job. So my first job was a fixed term position. What that means is it wasn't a permanent job, it was sort of grant funded for I think it was 18 months, so it wasn't a permanent contract. But after I graduated, 3 months later, I got my first job 3 days a week working at a welfare rights centre. And what that meant was, because I'd been doing some volunteer work, doing benefit applications, helping people who were in debt, you know, some people that were coming certainly to this advice centre, because obviously I had the language skills, again, you know, use what you can, because that's what we have to do nowadays. I could translate for people, and a lot of the people that were coming in, you know, it was just translating letters for them because they couldn't read or write. A lot of them had come in as immigrants or had married into to people that lived here but had separated from their husbands and actually didn't know what benefits to claim. So yeah, really interesting. And again, you know, I think we're getting at a theme here, but really wanted to help people and really enjoyed that. But after doing it for a year, before my fixed term ended, I thought, yeah, I've done it now. I know how to do an income support form, and I know how to tell someone, you know, when the telephone line's not working. I've done the translation. What else can I do? And you know, it's a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember what the exciting things were. I'm sure there were many, but I do remember feeling I've got to where I can now, and I need a new job. So looked around and saw this job come up at Youth Start. This is a fantastic organisation based in Rotherham, and it's part of Rotherham Borough Council. It's still there. If you Google Youth Start Rotherham, it'll come up in Google, and I'm sure they've got a web page. And I applied for a job as an advice worker. Little did I know it was a very different advice work job. But again, you know, university, you know, talking about those adaptable skills, I think this course, what I, you know, found is I have so many skills that I've got. I could communicate, I could do teamwork, my volunteer work, my job work that I was doing sort of in the call centre stuff. I could use all of that, and when I was filling applications, I could sort of link everything together. So I was actually getting the interviews. So when I applied for this job, again, I really didn't think I'd get it because it was working with young people, and it was very different to what I'd done before. But because obviously I'd had the sort of advice work sort of category and I'd done that work, I was successful. First day of my job, there was a massive delivery of condoms, and you can imagine a Muslim girl like me thinking, oh my word. And there weren't just one, it were flavoured condoms, which I didn't know about. I was like, oh my word. Thinking, I went home, and I have to say, this is no lie, I remember thinking, oh my God, if my dad finds out. But then looking through the job description, this isn't mentioned. And actually realised that advice work for young people was totally different to an adult centre, because young people, you know, are sexually active, they do drink alcohol, they do take drugs. You know, that sounds really bad, doesn't it? But these are the issues that they need support with, and actually that's what this advice centre was about. So I had applicable skills, but it was an absolute different, it was, you know, from my comfort zone, it was totally different. But I persisted and I got on, and actually I have to say, in my sort of career history, it was one of my favourite jobs. I loved it to bits. Really enjoyed working with people, and things I was doing on a daily basis were sort of doing teenage pregnancy, so testing if someone thought they were pregnant. And that was massive, because, you know, if a young girl's pregnant at 14, 16, even at 11, you know, we dealt with that, and, you know, you're the first person to tell them, so they're never going to forget you and the news that you just delivered to them. But also, you're not going to forget them, and, you know, that journey of do they need to have a termination, do they continue that pregnancy, how do they tell their partner and their parent, you know, massive. So the emotional support you're giving a young person was phenomenal. Definitely really enjoyed that. But again, you know, a bit like yourself there, you know, felt like, you know, I was doing that, and I'd done it for about 18 months, coming up to 2 years, and thought, you know what, I can do this. I have challenged as much as I can. I've done what I needed to do. I think I need the next job in now. What else could I be doing? And there was nothing available, you know. Some of my colleagues who are actually still there, you know, still meet them and go for coffees with them, and some of them are still there doing the same job, and that's fine for them. But for me, I wanted the next challenge, and that's my journey. So I saw another job, which was at Sheffield City Council this time, as a project officer for the teenage pregnancy strategy. And I have to say, this is probably one of my most least favourite jobs, because I was working in a team of senior managers. I was the only project officer, so nobody else knew what I was doing. The person who'd recruited me, who'd seen the vision for this job, had then left. So I was left with a manager who didn't really get what I was doing, and therefore I didn't feel supported. And I remember lots of days thinking, oh, it's not 8 o'clock, I've got to get up in a bit and go to work, and I really don't want to. And I wasn't the type of person, I really loved working, because again, think about my family, I was really, you know, having a job was a privilege, you know, it was, not every girl got to do that, so I really felt, you know, I'm lucky to have this opportunity. But really felt, you know, I'm not getting fulfilled, I'm not getting job satisfaction. Persevered and stayed there again for about 18 months, maybe coming up to 2 years, and another opportunity came up. But what I learned from the job is it's better to be in a job that you don't like than to have a career gap, you know, in your CV. And I think that's the thought that got me. And actually working with a bad manager was really good as well, because I learned how actually then later on in my career how not to be a manager, and, you know, how is it I should be talking to people, and if I create a job I should think about how that job's going to be supported, you know, the team support for that individual. If you create a job on its own, then that person is going to go home, you know, carrying a heavy burden, thinking that I'm not getting the satisfaction. So, you know, really useful lessons. Then another job came up at Zest, and again, if you Google this Zest community, that'll come up under Google. It's a Sheffield charity, again, fantastic. Lots of volunteer opportunities if anybody's interested in this type of work. this organisation had won a tender, so we had a person talking about service specification. So there was a service specification for childhood obesity, and these Zest had obviously won this contract, so they'd got some money, they were going to set this new service up and they needed a manager. I'd applied for a manager role. I've never managed a budget, never managed individuals, but again I really sold myself and was really passionate about working with young people. So I got into this role. Thoroughly enjoyed it, a massive learning curve. So by the end of it, I had managed a team, I'd managed a service, I'd managed a budget, I'd had contract meetings with people like yourself who were asking me, Naz, what have you done, what have you spent the budget on, why are you getting these complaints? I was then answering to this kind of person. So, very different end of, as a provider. So we would be called a provider service. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Whilst I was there, I also did my Masters in Public Health because that's the kind of people I was working with and felt, maybe that's the avenue for me really, and maybe public health's an area that I want to get into. And at the time there was a promotion, so I applied for it and I got it. So then I wasn't just managing the obesity service, working with overweight kids, helping them and their families to lose weight, which was really, really enjoyed that, but also managing other services, so around pregnancy, so young women that are, not young women, but any woman who's sort of pregnant in a deprived area in the city and in support that they need helping them. So these are what we call health champions. So again, if you want to get into volunteer work in this area, I would recommend Googling health champions in Sheffield and you'll find lots to do. Other services were around exercise referrals, so people that might have had cardiac issues, have been released from the hospital but need support, would come in and maybe use the gym, that kind of thing. We had health trainers, so I was managing lots of different services around health. Again, did that for another 2 years. Kind of felt like, right, I don't want to be the chief exec, so I'm not quite there yet, but what do I want to do next? And applied for a few jobs in public health within the NHS, but found it, if I'm honest, they kept telling me you need a Masters, then I got the Masters, and then it was like public health moved to Sheffield City Council. So you'll find things change, you'll have a plan. Like, I've never had a plan. I did this degree, felt really grateful, but I didn't know, I never had an aspiration, I want to be a manager, I want to do this. But what I've always tried to do is go for jobs that interest me, and as soon as they stop interesting me, I think, right, I need to redraw, look at what's available. And thankfully, I've just taken the opportunities, and I feel like it's worked for me. And also, because all of the jobs I've just listed there, none of them have been permanent, they've always been fixed term. And I think that's another thing to tell you, because, this idea of a job for life, I don't think it exists anymore. So when my dad was, here, came in the 60s as a migrant and had a job, he had a shop, and he was a shopkeeper, he did that, and that was his job for life, really. That I don't think that happens as much anymore, certainly within the employment field. So anyway, at Zest, kind of felt like I'd got to where I wanted to, and then I saw a job for 6 months. 10 grand more money, so you'd be daft not to take it. But again, after that, I thought, right, it's a bit more money, but it's only for 6 months, and what am I going to do after that? But I thought, hey, it's part of NHS, it's the Children's Hospital, maybe I should go for it. So I did, and I was successful, and again, really had to sell myself. They really grilled me at this interview. I had people like clinical directors, so head of psychology services, the most senior person in that interview, and thankfully I didn't know who he was, so it didn't matter. If I did it now, I'd probably be a lot more nervous. So sometimes actually not knowing people, I find is really, you could just be yourself and you could tell people about your experience without thinking that they know me or they're going to hold it against me. That's really important. And in this job, really thoroughly again linked into my sort of experience of working in health. I was working with school nurses, health visitors. Again, the job didn't have a clear remit, and I think that's the reason it was only for 6 months. They had an organisational change. What that means is the organisation, they've got structure, there's a manager, they've got people working under them, there's a team here. An organisational change will mean they'll sort of screw that up and say, right, we want this instead. So they had me there for 6 months, but then there was a different plan really for the job, and I decided actually that wasn't what I wanted to do. It's more business focused. And actually I felt that, I got the job as a deputy general manager, that's what I wanted to be doing. It didn't quite work out. So then came here, service manager, and this is what I manage currently. I think again all of these jobs, the last sort of 3 are all public health related. At the moment I manage primary care dental. There is a public health team within that, where basically my team, we've got about 15 staff, will then go out and basically in Sheffield we'll train staff, so maybe social workers, health workers, teachers around how to, carers around oral health hygiene, but we also have dentists. So if you think about a normal dentist that you and I would go to, that's what we call a general dental practice. The primary care dental service is a service that's there for people who have learning difficulties, who have extra healthcare needs that can't just be managed by a normal dentist, so they need a lot more care. We also work with the homeless service, so basically anyone that's homeless can come in and get their teeth done, and we work at the cathedral. So rather than there being a clinic for them, we actually go into the cathedral and actually, offer that service every Thursday once a month. And that has its limitations. So that I think really I've tried to, sorry if I'm boring you, but hopefully what I've tried to do is kind of show you that actually within the sort of degree you're doing, there's fantastic jobs that you can do as long as you're interested and you apply yourselves. I think for me, again, very similar to other people, meetings, a typical week includes lots of one-to-ones. A lot of my work is with staff. I'm working in a dental service. I've never worked as a dentist or as a hygiene therapist or as a dental nurse, and I don't think you need that. What you need is to be a manager and to have people around you that you can say you're the one who's the expert, and that as a manager I can go to you for support and say, right, you're the clinician, you tell me what do I need to do with this, and I'll then go away and do it. So I think that's really important, and a lot of my things, what I do in my current job, that's what I'm finding. So for example, the dental cart was broken last week, and someone ran and said, "Naz, the dental cart's broken." What's a dental cart? It's one of those type of things. But actually, what you'll find, not knowing things is not necessarily a bad thing. It's knowing where to go and to find the solution, and to support your staff and say, look, I'm not always sure about the answer, but I will help you to get there. That's really important. Emails, you can't get away from emails. I've just recently got emails from my work on my personal phone, and it's driving around the bank because you're perpetually emailing, and even in the middle of a meeting you'll be checking your emails, but that is the nature of the way managers work at the moment. In this service, interestingly, I wouldn't say I would normally as a manager in my sort of previous 3 roles not really use telephone a lot, but in this service what I'm finding is within the NHS, the service I manage within dental, the staff have been there 20-30 years, and they are not very good at technology, anything new, like Twitter. No, what's Twitter? Tweeting? Oh, no. So a very older age kind of client group, if you like, in terms of the staff group, and they actually, what I've quickly realised is prefer to ring rather than doing email, because it's just not the way they communicate. So it's a very different way of working, but there you go. I think training's really important. I'm sort of doing a lot of training around at the moment. One of the courses I'm doing is coaching. So as a manager within the NHS, they're investing in us where we can coach junior members of staff around their development and their opportunities. So that's something I'm doing, and something I recommend that people take on, and I'll come on to that. And I've got more emails. So again, I think a typical week. So if I give you an example, this morning I came to the office, and there was 3 other clinicians, so senior nurses who work under me, and they are the more clinical people, if you like, within the service. And this morning, one of them was on leave, 2 of them were both off sick, so it's typical, isn't it, and actually all their calls were coming through to me because I'm then the more senior person. My phone must have gone about 15 times, and most of them, I could sort out or leave messages, but one of them was like, well, Naz, tomorrow afternoon we've got 3 clinics, and we've only got 2 nurses. Okay then. So then it was like, right, first thing is panic, what do I do? But then it's like, right, calm yourself, find out who is in, right, let's have a look at the programme, who's on the rota, having a look. So it's not something I would do daily, but I'm not getting panicked, but then thinking about actually how we come to a resolution. So I managed to fix that, and I think that's what I would say is, you're going to go into areas where you're not the expert, but you don't have to be. I've put here some of the likes and dislikes, and I'm just going to touch on these. I think hospital, there's lots of politics. Some of our clinicians have been there for years and years, and as a manager, you definitely get this manager-clinician divide. I'm the person with the budget who's not letting them do things, but you have got to be resilient, and you've got to be strong. Also, as a manager, you are going to find that you are a person in a senior leadership position, and people look up to you, and people can be really critical, and actually as a manager it can be quite lonely. When I was at Zest, there was 4 of us, and we were a bit of a team really, and here there's just me. I'm the only one who gets dental, I'm the only service manager, and it can be quite lonely, but that's where you need to look after yourself and start to think, well, where do I go for support when I need it? And I've got a good line manager who does give me support, so that's really important. I think the media portrayal of the NHS, if you look at any Guardian, Daily Mail, we're constantly being scrutinised. I think you just got to I feel really proud and privileged to work for the NHS. It's taken me a long time to get here, but now that I'm here, I know this is where I want to stay. I don't know if I want to stay in dental, but I definitely know this is where I want to be. A lot of the things I've talked about, around the likes, or what people have said previously. So just lastly, finishing up then, I think get work experience, certainly lessons that I've learned. Get a job, it'll build your confidence if you've got a nervous person. use the career service. I remember I spoke to, I think it was Hilary Worrell actually, when I was here, and asked her to help me do my CV and give me advice on how to write applications. That is absolutely fundamental. Do something that you enjoy, because you spend a lot of time at work, and if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to get a buzz out of it. You know, I think that's the key thing. And that's said, learn from everything, you know, even the bad experiences, and be adaptable, because this idea of a job for life isn't there. And I think what I would finally say is, if there's any job on the job training, you know, pick it up. My husband hates any training, wants to work for himself, and that's fine. But if you're going to work for somebody else, take as much as you can, because it adds to your CV. And I think I've already touched on the things that you can do. So I think I'm just in time, hopefully. All right, thank you.